Hello everyone, I'm back for another update. Again at the top ridgeline of Middle Mountain. And today I'm in the middle section of the ridge. There are three high points on the ridge. One's the southern end, one in the middle I'm on. Bit on the windy side up here. I wasn't expecting, because down in the valley it was hardly a breath of wind, but that storm system up in the northern plains is beginning to kick the winds up here out of the southeast, coming from that direction. So the valley, this side isn't getting much wind. So in my last few videos I've been talking about the transition between ice ages and interglacial periods. Anybody that's studied, I've known about ice ages since a kid. Before a teenager I knew about it. And grew up on a place that's actually considered a terminal moraine of the ice sheets, created by the ice sheets. So, I've always wondered why the climate today is so different than back then, what happened to change things. Before I was a teenager, I already knew what the length of its cycles were. I already knew or hinted that the sun variations could have caused ice ages. So I've been doing additional research lately and listening to some videos. I know people wonder how transition to this present interglacial happened, and catastrophic flooding that rose to sea levels that came when the great ice sheets melted off. The remarkable thing is how quickly the melt occurred. Where did all that extra heat energy come from to melt the ice fast enough to cause all the flooding that happened, mega floods? People scratching their heads, well, the answer is not really that hard to figure out. It's the sun. It's an important that I've been talking about, where the sun, we don't really know over eons of time what the average output of the sun has been. We only have very recent times to draw from. And it does make sense to me that the sun in actuality may be a dwarf star that occasionally gets more active. And that interglacials happen during the more active periods of the sun. And it does follow a cycle of some sort. And the big question is the cycle internal on the sun, or is it due to external factors from the outside that cause the sun? Perhaps we move through every so often a part of the galaxy where comets come in at a greater frequency solar system than at other times, because comets can stoke up the sun and cause it to be more active. and also create cataclysms on the Earth with their impacts as well? Or is it more of an internal mechanism on the sun that comes every 90,000 years? Something happens within the sun that causes the sun to change to a higher output for 10,000 years overall, and then that dies out, and then 90,000 years approximately later, we hit another period where the sun gets more active again, and the ice sheets go away. Because the remarkable thing about the record is that we look at climatic is we rise very suddenly out of the ice age to an interglacial. It happens very fast. But then the change to an ice age it happens a little more slowly than the change into an interglacial. And that is pretty interesting. That supports what I've been saying about the sun, that it suddenly wakes up out of a slumber. Something happens and it suddenly with a bang comes to life, and global temperatures within a matter of a few decades rise like 10°C. And that sudden warming suddenly starts melting the ice. Plus, if there's solar flares, huge solar storms, when this happens, that would even add to the warming effect and cause an even more rapid melt. And obviously, if comets coming in more frequently have something to do with all this, it would create cataclysms on the Earth around that time. Or is it a combination of both? The sun, or is it the comets come in, collide with the sun, and stoke it up? You don't know for sure. So I'm going to take the trail I discovered down off Middle Mountain today. I did modify it a little bit. This is a wilderness area, so I didn't really, just enough, modified it just enough to make it a little more easier to traverse. So I'm just coming down off the top now. So I'm going to get into more present topics. I was watching a video of Tom Nelson and the recently released, he spoke with the person in charge of climate and weather in the state of North Dakota, USA. And I don't remember the name of the person off the top of my head, but talked about some interesting things that happened. And this person is for the truth. Sounds like he is for, he wants to see truth in statistics. He's been a meteorologist for 35 years, and again, is in the state of North Dakota. And the reason why they got into the discussion is because the airport in Fargo, North Dakota, he noticed a discrepancy in the data that highly unlikely was due to chance or due to an actual trend in temperatures, where on March 7th, 2023, suddenly the temperatures at this recording station jumped 3 degrees. Like there was a sudden jump, and that was the day maintenance was being performed on the site there, and he had set up his own recording device for a weather station next to that one. He got permission, and he noticed that there was a discrepancy between their readings and his readings. Very interesting. And you look at the graph that he showed on that video, it showed a sudden 3-degree rise in temperatures from March 7, 2023 onward. Whereas his recording devices did not show it. That he had placed next to theirs. And it's kind of a cockroach on the wall type thing, because if I looked at the chart and I noticed that before this happened, there was a decline in temperature starting to happen at that recording station. I noticed the trend was a little down toward the end before this sudden jump up. Now, he stopped short of saying that global warming and the agenda had something to do with it, but he did acknowledge, obviously he's not going to acknowledge that if his job depends on, his paycheck depends on towing the line. I would not think he would, even if he felt that way, that he would come out in the open about it. But it was very interesting, and he acknowledged that in many airports around the country, there are several other places, like Minneapolis, St. Paul, 8-degree heat island effect. Like he said, Minneapolis, St. Paul will probably never break another record low temperature again, because the heat island effect has warmed them up so much that most of the records are before that heat island effect happened. But getting back to Fargo, he feels that something was done to the sensor. And I agree. And that they claim that the tolerance range is up to 3.6 degrees, that it's acceptable to have a reading higher like that. Of course, they're recording this temperature officially in their records, and he challenged it and tried to get them to erase their record since March 7, 2023 and go with his, but they refused to do so, and he also requested that the sensor be changed out for a new one, more accurate, and they denied his request. This ties in with a video I put out some time ago when I was in Idaho. Traveling through Idaho, and my truck thermometer said it was 67 degrees outside, and I got out at a rest area that had a little weather station, and their temperature read 73 degrees, a difference of 7 degrees Fahrenheit. And my truck thermometer only said it was in the 67 when I pulled in there. Really, this is a cockroach on the wall type scenario where this meteorologist, because Fargo, North Dakota has a bunch of recording stations, including Moorhead, Minnesota, which is just across the state line. I've been to Fargo several times. I know what kind of an area they're in. I know how close it is to Moorhead, Minnesota. It's just across the river. I've actually been there. I've actually walked across the bridge over that river into Minnesota. I'm fairly familiar with the area. I mean, I never lived there, but I've been there. So he caught this because all these other reporting stations around Fargo were coming up with different figures. And he also went into like the 90-degree days, the amount of 90-degree days over the course of the summer, and how 2024 in Fargo only got up to 90 degrees 4 times at his recording stations, but Fargo, the airport sensor, they claim they got up to 9 times instead of 4, just 4. You see how this 3-degree difference can skew the figures they come up with for these kinds of things in favor of warming. It's very interesting because, again, it's like a cockroach on the wall. We don't know how many other places are doing this right now. I mean, I saw a post recently, for example, that said, I think it was Burlington, Vermont, set a record high a few days ago of 65 degrees, I think, and they claim that the record highs versus record lows, a 28-to-1 ratio or something in favor of record highs. Well, of course, if the airport, if the center is at the airport, that would make sense. It would be very hard to knock the temperature down. Plus, if Lake Champlain and the Great Lakes are not ice covered much because of several mild winters in a row, it's going to be a lot harder to break a record low temperature under those circumstances anyway. But they were saying in the past 2 or 3 years the ratio has been some ridiculous figure. So the trail I discovered, it kind of ends at this little depression here, and I'm kind of wondering if there was a dwelling here at one time, long time ago, in that depression. There's a little depression right there in the landscape. I'm trying not to slip on these leaves here. But yeah, there's a little depression right here. Trees are actually growing in the middle of it. And then the trail begins right there. That will take me down off Middle Mountain, or start to. And other factors I'm going to mention that could tip the climate. We know that a lot of volcanoes are rumbling. It's like the severe thunderstorm approaching. You hear the thunder off in the distance. It gets closer. And this is kind of what it seems like now. There's so many huge mega volcanoes rumbling, earthquakes. Several of them, mega volcanoes that have not erupted in a very long time, have been rumbling with earthquake swarms. And here is this trail I'm on it now, and as you can see, it gently takes you down off the summit of the Middle Mountain, or near the summit. Takes you down to another trail that would take you to a spur ridge to get down completely. So I do not have to climb, like, it's like a lot steeper to try to go up that than come up this trail. The only thing is it's quite slippery for some reason right here with these leaves. But only disadvantage is there are a lot of blowdowns to climb over. but it is at least some sort of a trail. It's not excessively steep. It does get you up pretty close to the top of the ridge. Doesn't get all the way up, but pretty close. But yeah, you got to get up over these. Well then, so getting back to what I was talking about, there is a lot of rumbling going on, and even one of these volcanoes does blow. It would lead to a large loss of life and a potential cooling event of major proportions that would last several years. Also, another thing that I noticed that very few people are talking about is temperatures in the stratosphere all winter between latitude 50 and 90 north have been running record levels below average all winter almost. Yeah, they talked about a stratospheric warming recently, but that's seasonal anyway. The stratosphere normally starts to warm up in March with the seasons in the northern hemisphere. But the interesting thing is that we have been running in the below the bottom 10 percentile in temperatures consistently almost all winter up there. And that's hard to say what that entails or why that's happening. But this is one of the coldest winters on record up at that level between 50 and 90 north that we've ever had by far. Nobody, again, is talking about it. If you look at the graph, it's right there. Plain as day. And is that a precursor to cooling that's going to happen in the near future? Again, we don't know for sure, but it has been definitely an anomaly this year. As far as the NJO is concerned, it's spread out in different phases. There's a lot of convection in phase 1, which is why the northern plains is going to stay cold for a while. But there's also convection in the phase 5 zone, which is going to oppose that and bring warm weather to the southern U.S. So they're kind of butting heads. Which is why we're getting this storm here, part of the reason. The plains. Now, is there going to be a huge tornado outbreak? I doubt it, because again, the Gulf is not that warm to support. Again, I know the anomaly maps try to say otherwise, but you think about the winter we just had and how cold the snowstorm they got down there and how much it must have cooled the water down. Like dropping an ice cube in a glass, it's going to cool the water down significantly. If you get a snowstorm over the Gulf like that, it's going to cool the water temperatures down. I look today, I mean, there is some activity over Arkansas when I last looked, but there isn't really a whole lot going on severe weather-wise at the moment. Of course, this thing is not going to be till this evening, but I'm going to keep an eye on it and see what really happens. But I think they're really hyping it up considerably over what it's probably going to be, actually. Yeah, I got to get over this blowdown right here. You can see there's like 3 different trees. There's a view again down into the valley. Here's where I just came from. There's the top of the ridge I came off of. There's a hawk up above soaring past. That is going to be it for this video. I hope you found what to talk about interesting and enjoyed, again, this hike. I'm going to head back down and I'll be back soon.